This is Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this podcast series is called Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. And if you've been listening to a few of these, you know that this series is to support and empower you to see who you are at your most essential nature, in your essential nature, and to live your life from that place. And these podcasts are to support and empower you to explore and be curious about who you are. Not in terms of what you've been told, or not in terms of what you thought was true, but what is true. So a client of mine, Linda, who's in her 60s, one of her biggest challenges is she is terrified that people won't like her. She's an amazingly likable person. She's just an awesome, wonderful person. And yet she's constantly acting out of fear that people won't like her or will reject her or think she's not cool or not nice. And so all of her, it's like all of the choices she makes has to go through this filter of, will people like me, or will they reject me if I make this decision? So think about every decision you make in your life, and think about all the filters that operate in you before you make a choice for yourself. And you might go, oh, I don't do that. But I betcha that there are places where you filter yourself and your ideas, or what your wants and needs and desires are, that you filter it through something before you actually speak it or act it. So that is what Linda's challenge is to go. And so as we're talking, I think she's a really cool person. She's really wonderful, very loving and generous and playful and creative. And so I said, I think you're great. And she goes, I know I'm great. It's like, okay, so if you know you're great, how can you be with that you're living in your greatness and not in the fear that people are going to find you something other than great? Now that's a big dilemma, because, and it's challenging to talk about in a sense that in my life, I live as a great person. I mean, I'm just who I am. On the inside, it's almost like the crispy part on a marshmallow, roasted marshmallow. You've got the outside, but then you've got that mushy stuff on the inside. So on the inside, I live and have lived, had more so in the past, lived as if I was afraid of being me, afraid to trust myself, trust my thoughts and feelings, trust my needs and wants, trust my intelligence, and trust my wisdom, to trust me. And so I constantly worry about, well, is this the truth? Is this right? Is this the wrong way? Is this whatever? And this is the same for Linda, in a sense that she's constantly questioning herself. Even though she can go, I'm really great, she questions her reality in terms of saying, maybe I will get rejected. Maybe people won't like me. And then what? And then what? And, if you're in this work of exploration, quite often, if people reject you, what does that mean about you? What will happen? What's your worst fears if people reject you? And if that happens, what will that mean about you? And it's a challenge to be open to that exploration, to say, if people find out that about me, I'll be humiliated, or I'll be devastated, or I'll be rejected. It's like, okay, if that's true, that you'll be rejected, humiliated, and embarrassed, well, now what? What will that mean about you? Well, and then it goes on and on and on. But there's a point where it's like, does it really matter enough? Does it matter what other people are going to think? Does it matter these beliefs that you've been holding on? Does it matter to hold on to those beliefs as if they're true, and they keep you from your limitlessness? Do you want to be, I say this, like, if I ask you the question, do you want to be limited from your fullest potentiality? You're going to go, no, I don't want to be limited by my potentiality. And then if I say, well, what do you want to let go of? What are you willing to let go of? You'll hesitate to say, well, I'm afraid. Now we're in a different conversation. Do you want to let go of all the limiting beliefs so that you can have the most extraordinary life? And you go, yes, absolutely. It's like, okay, great. Now the work starts. What's the beliefs that get in the way of you being in your limitlessness? Well, I don't know how to do it. It's like, of course you don't know how to do it. Nobody knows how to do it, because each one of us has to discover and explore within ourselves that unique path that's only ours. And we don't know how to do that. So it's really a matter of cultivating the courage, cultivating the daringness, cultivating the commitment, cultivating the tenacity to say, this is what I want to know. Myself, you've heard me say this before, I want to know what it's like to live in my fullest potentiality, in this limitlessness. I want to know. And I probably won't get to the 100% potentiality, but as long as I'm in the direction of that, I'm pretty excited, because over the last 10 years, which has been, I started this deep spiritual immersion process about 10 years ago, it gets better and more exciting. And yeah, there are challenges. And yes, I keep facing things, as I mentioned in the previous podcast. I return to places over and over again because there's lessons to learn over and over again, deeper. Oh, now I get it. It's like learning to play the piano or learning to play golf or anything. There's practice so that you can see the evolution of this process and how you're progressing, and how this is going to make a difference to you, and where you get stuck, where you don't get stuck. And it gets more exciting and less fearful, less anxiety, less anxiousness, less panic attacks, less dread. This is my experience. And more excitement and more curiosity. What's going to show up today? What kind of cool things are going to happen today that will move me in the direction of my highest truth, my highest good, my fullest potentiality? That's what I want to know. And the challenge is to say, okay, but what about my past? Here's what happened in my past. And it's like, yeah, that happened in your past. How do you rectify? And this is the challenge most of us have. If that happened in the past, it could happen in the future. It happened in the past because of the dynamics of your belief system, the dynamics of your emotional maturity, your emotional intelligence. It happened in the past because of some orientation that you had, which created that reality so that you would learn something, or perhaps help somebody else learn something. You're here now in a different reality, and you can shift those beliefs and interpretations and say, I'm not going to make those decisions from my past beliefs. I'm going to look at how I can see this differently. And as you do that, then you are letting go of the old data, the old belief system, the old, it's like having a computer. I have a computer that's been under my bed for about 7 years. It's pretty old, and all the data in there, the stuff that was important to me, I've transferred, and the other stuff is just old data. So if I went into that computer, I wouldn't find anything that would be useful to me to go forward in my life. And that's what we have to do, is we have to willingly challenge that old data and say, that doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want to go to that encyclopedia or Wikipedia. I don't want to go to that source of information anymore, because it's old, it's archaic, it's not relevant to where I want to go. I have to get rid of, but I've got one of those old Rand McNally maps that I have had in my car for almost 20 years. And it's useful because it's a map, and I like to look at the map. But in terms of what it's giving me, the information, it's so outdated. And so I don't use it so much to find my way as I would, let's say, Google Maps. But I can use it when I want to look at a map and say, oh, here's where these boundaries, or here's where this city is in this state or province, and use it as an exploration tool, but not as the source of the tool. So that's what we have to do here, is when we're looking at the past, we're looking for, is this useful information to go forward in my life? Is this useful information to use to go forward? And we have a lot of trauma in our life. We carry trauma from our past lives. We carry trauma from our ancestors. This is in science. So this is not just woo-woo talk. This is researched. And we carry that trauma. And so when we experience trauma, we have a thought and it triggers a trauma response, like panic and anxiety. We go, oh, that must be true. And we have to go, no, that's not true. That's just an old pattern based on an old experience that happened somewhere, to someone, and I'm carrying that. And I don't want to go forward with that belief system or that trauma directing me. It's like Linda saying, I'm afraid people won't like me. So it's the filter that we use. And trauma is a major filter for so many of us. PTSD responses is like, that's a major filter. And we want to avoid that. But if we avoid it, then we're not moving forward in our life. We're living in the avoidance of something from the past. So complicated, yes. On another level, it's very simple. It's like if something doesn't work anymore, we have to stop using it. And there are old belief patterns that aren't relevant to the future. And so many people know this, and yet it's so difficult to have faith and trust in ourselves that we can know ourselves to be strong and make things happen in a good way, and to let go of the old beliefs that we can't or we shouldn't, or people will reject us, or I'll die, or I'll get killed, or I'll get cancer. All of those things that say this'll, I'll lose all my money. We can't risk trusting ourselves. That's the belief. And that we're at the mercy of that belief is part of the dilemma here. And we've got to be able to say, I don't want to be at the mercy of that belief. It's like, okay, great. Are you done being at the mercy of that belief? Are you done? Rather than, I don't want to be at the mercy of that, are you done being at the mercy of that belief? Big question. And it's like, okay, I am done with that. Okay, great. And we return to it over and over and over again as we're practicing, much like, again, practicing piano lessons. We have to practice it over and over until it becomes pretty much just an intuitive response. And our fingers flow effortlessly over the keys, or our emotions flow effortlessly over triggers. It's very, very possible. It's very, very doable. It just takes the time it takes. And it takes faith. And it takes appreciation for everything that you are, and utilizing everything that you are to bring you to the next level of your highest truth, your highest good, and your highest knowing. All right, I'm smiling as I'm thinking of you. So big hugs, and bye for now.